Here's a question from a CEO asking, how do I hire Maverick salespeople? Well, if I knew how to do this, I'd be a headhunter because it's hard. It's insanely hard to determine if somebody can sell before they're actually in the job because sales is so different depending on what you sell. And most of the best salespeople can't articulate why they're better than other salespeople. You'll hear things like, oh, I worked harder. I knew the industry better. I didn't give up as easily. And those are all true. They're not wrong, but they're not how they sell. If you listen to my interviews with Lee Bartlett from the #1 bestseller, you'll understand how I pull it out of him. He didn't know why he was the top salesperson. I had to pull it out. He was able to connect with people. He understood that he had to give and that he had to reciprocate. And I tell the story all the time. 99% of these sales experts, that they approach me all wrong. They have some admin asked to be on my show. They send me their book, okay, great. Okay, they're not sharing my show, promoting me and the podcast to build the audience that will help them. They're completely taking. And I'm like, do they even know how to sell? Now, if I want to be on somebody's podcast, like The Art of Charm with Jordan Harbinger, I offer to have him on mine to promote him. And then we build a relationship. We talk and we get to know each other and we help each other out. And then all of a sudden, we're working together. And that's how sales works. Okay, now let's get back to the point. How do you hire and find Maverick salespeople? First of all, they're not looking for jobs because their network and their net worth is so high that people come to them. And the current employees either want to get rid of them because they're paying them too much and handicap their comp plan to the point where they're unhappy, which happens. Mavericks actually get fired more than B players. B players, huddle down, they kiss their boss's butt. Mavericks push the envelope, both on the inside, trying to get the company to do things that they should be doing for their clients, as well as on the outside, trying to get into new big accounts and get deals bigger and faster. And when you do that, you ruffle feathers. We're in the feather ruffling business. We are the egg crackers of the omelet. And what happens is, and it's happened I see it everywhere with everyone. Okay, they're like, because every other salesperson is jealous and vindictive against this person, calling it luck, chance, the territory, timing, all of that, just so that they can kind of push themselves up. So Mavericks aren't going to be looking. They're not going to be hunting for jobs. They probably will be active on social. They will be givers. They'll probably be writing pulse posts. Or they may take a different approach. They may take a very personal approach. I've seen great Maverick salespeople not even on LinkedIn. And I'm like, but what do they do? They're having breakfast with other reps. They're having lunch with clients. They're going out at night with networking events. They're in-person people. They're old school. And that's fine. To each their own. And that's what sales is all about. It's like there's a million ways, to skin the cat. And how you do it is up to you. So there's no one way to find Mavericks, but what you'll hear is, and if you ask anybody about them, what you'll always hear is that person knows how to sell. That was always the key thing that I looked for. And I always looked for somebody who was kind of a little outside the norm, that wasn't the company person, wasn't that's the A player. The A player, shows up early, stays late, and they play the inside game. And they will not, they will not go outside that envelope. And that's okay. And A players do very well, but they're not going to do 3, 4, 500% of their number. They're going to do, 150, 200% of their number. And that's okay. And, hiring an A player is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, B players, you probably want to stay away from, especially in this case, this guy's a startup, a Series A startup. What you need is people who are going to get brand new business, that are going to hunt it down, not just get meetings, not just get trials, not just get demos, but can close deals, large deals, and be able to connect with people. So you have to look for that in the past. Now let's talk about the mistakes that I see. founders and hiring managers do, because the problem is you hire the wrong person, you hire the wrong salesperson, and you cost you a ton of money. So mistake number one is they're unwilling to pay headhunters. Now, most headhunters suck. Most salespeople suck. Most people suck. But a good headhunter is worth his weight in gold, or her weight in gold, and is worth that fee if you find a good one. And what you want to do is look at a lot of salespeople and really kind of understand how they sell, where they've had success, and do not hire somebody from a big company, because salespeople at big companies, and I mean big company, it doesn't have to be that big, 30 million or more, even though it's considered a small company. What ends up happening is they start putting systems in place, and they value the system more than the person. So they have to be Salesforce.com monkeys, and it's been a one-for-one relationship where the top salesperson at every company I've ever seen refuses to use the CRM. Why? Because they have their own system. They use email, they use their smartphone, but they're not going to spend half of a day, 10% of their week entering data so that their manager could, ask them questions about the data. And that frustrates the hell out of managers. And I get it, because they're looking at a lot of inside people who spend their whole half their day entering data into the system. So you're going to look for a little bit of renegade, and that's good, because they got to be focused on getting deals. So they should be bragging about how much money they make. And especially in a startup where you can give equity and, all that new marginal business that wouldn't happen anyway, especially in software, there's a lot of margin there. And those early, logos that you want to put on your website, those are pretty valuable. So highly compensating and incentivizing them on the top end, that's what they should look for. If they're too focused on their base salary, that's a red flag. So do not hire from big companies. Just because somebody works for a competitor doesn't mean they're going to be a good salesperson. They mean know the business. And I've never really found the Rolodex deals, what they used to call in the 90s, where somebody had such a network that they're going to come in with a big deal immediately. Never seen it happen. Okay, I saw what happened once. And, it happens eventually, a year and a half later, because the need wasn't there within their Rolodex. So they have to go out and build, a new network, and that's okay. But you can't count on that. And too often I see they want to hire somebody directly out of their competitor, so they know the business, they know the customer base, they know the issues. And that can work, but that's kind of a B player strategy, and you'll probably get to your number, but you won't get to that blowout. That's what the Maverick does. And I talk about this, several companies where I've been able to go in and do 30% of the company's revenue, one person, and it's like, and I had to backflip the company, and a lot of people didn't like me. I made a lot of people mad, but I got these big deals done, and lots of them, and it just turned into a machine. But that type of person isn't going to put up with a lot of structure. And so what I would do, definitely contact a headhunter. Start putting your feelers out on LinkedIn. Look for people that might be in your industry, but not exactly in a competitor, and smaller companies that are unusually successful where they shouldn't be, and don't hire from the big companies. Too often, and I've seen it all the time, because the big company people aren't successful because of them. They're riding a huge wave. Certainly they can be A players, but you're not going to find many Mavericks at big companies, because they'll get frustrated, especially today. There's too much structure and administration, and that's the downside of all this technology, is it's putting a lot more burden on the salesperson to learn it all and to enter the data so that the manager's happy and content with that content. So look for these motives. Look for the money motivated and competition and success. Those are the good things. The bad things, if they're interested in business cards, titles, office space, compensate, vacation, PTO stuff, red flag. And you can see how they interview. If they're asking you these great questions, understanding your business, understanding what's going to happen when they start to present your solution to people in new and creative ways, that's a Maverick. stick with them. But if you can't find a Maverick, hire an A player because time is ticking. You do need the inside people, the SDRs, as they call them today. Like there's a eureka moment since Aaron Ross discovered it. This has been going on before Aaron Ross was born. That's great for getting meetings, but that does not close deals. That's when I talked with Lee Bartlett, where in the U.S. we're SDR crazy now because everyone's focused on the cost of sales, not the top line. The top line is what really matters. You can always reduce the cost by firing people. It's the top line. You want the person who can do 3x their quota, and that's what will drive the value of the company. You don't care about how many calls and emails they do with all their KPIs. What you care about is that one KPI, revenue. That's all that matters to you. And if anything else matters to you, you're focusing on the wrong thing. I hope this has been helpful. I'll also do an episode of I Am a Maverick. How do I get a job? Or how do I make myself visible to other people? Yes, people will be pulling you, but today it's really noisy out there. So you have to be a little bit more visible and build your network, and always keep in mind that this profession is not a 30-year single company profession. I basically had to move probably an average of every 3 years, and it just happens. And it's obvious reasons. I'll get into those in another episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're checking out the show notes. Connect up with me on LinkedIn. I really appreciate these questions. I love talking about them. Thanks for listening.